They say that you've not read the news, then you're uninformed. But if you have read the news, then sadly, you're misinformed. It's a tragic reality of what's going on in the world today, where the news media is no longer journalism. It's incitement. It's not about the truth. It's about bias. It's not fact. It's opinion. The media is not a news institution. The media is a brainwashing institution. Listen to what the Lubavitcher Rebbe had to say about journalism as a gift from God, which we are empowered to bring to humanity, that God has endowed you with the ability to write or to speak or to tell a story, to share it with millions of people. Why would you abuse that God-given right? Here's the Rebbe sharing with us this beautiful and inspirational message.
Der Rebischter hat ihm gegeben eine Möglichkeit, soll können schreiben in der Zeitung. Ist mich stark, hat ihm gegeben in Zeitung, soll schreiben, nice, was tut sich in Milchome, was sie da in Katzvetevel. Aber das ist mehr nicht der reiswenigste Lewusch, ein reiswenigste Scholachs, durch welche soll können ausnutzen seine Möglichkeiten auf versprechen Niedigkeit. Da versuchen Weg, bis beschreiben, was tut sich in der Milchome, soll von dort rauskriegen, die Mini von Aschgoche Protis. Was weiß, das für sich, der hat beeinflussen. Alle Lehner von der Zeitung ist gamere nicht, jetzt ja das, was begnügen sich mit sich und mit seinen Ibn-Bei.
It's tragic to see how the media has disappointed us so incredibly in recent weeks. Take a look at this image, which was published 2 months ago on NBC News, screaming to the world that 14,000 babies will die in Gaza in the next 48 hours if more aid trucks do not reach Gaza. The image led readers to believe that this was a baby in Gaza, when in fact, this was a baby born in Yemen, a baby living in Yemen, blaming the Houthis. What should have blamed the Houthis was now being blamed on Israel. Another story is breaking that the BBC has instructed its journalists to blame Israel for any food shortages in Gaza, to make no reference to the amount of humanitarian aid trucks that are actually being brought into Gaza more than before October 7th, and to deliberately slant the story as biased against Israel, no matter what, no questions asked. And in fact, when this tragic story that you see on the screen over here, this image appeared on the front page of the New York Times just a few days ago, the heartbreaking photograph of the emaciated toddler, 18-month-old Mohammed Zakaria al-Mutawak, cradled in his mother's arms. The caption stated that the child had been born healthy but was now suffering from severe malnutrition. This is the real picture, when in fact the New York Times zoned only on the mother and the child, leaving the healthy brother out of the picture. It led readers to believe that the child was suffering from hunger, when in fact he was suffering from a severe genetic disorder of cerebral palsy. If there was hunger, then his older brother would not be looking so robust and healthy just a few feet away from him. When in fact the New York Times was called out in the story, take a look at what they did. Whilst the story was published initially to New York Times main X account with 55.1 million followers, the retraction, when they finally admitted, oops, we made a mistake, and the story actually wasn't about a child with suffering from malnutrition because of Israel, but rather because of a genetic disorder. Here's what happened. They published the story not to the main Twitter account or the main X account of the New York Times, but to the New York Times communications accounts with nearly 88,000 subscribers. The bad news reached 55 million subscribers, inciting hate and mobs and anti-Semitism all over the world, whereas the retraction hit just 88,000 subscribers. What a tragedy indeed. In fact, the story is breaking now that Israel is planning on filing a lawsuit against the New York Times for $1 billion or $10 billion. May they be successful in shutting down this slanderous organization, because the Torah teaches us that words have power. As the story in Genesis tells us, that God created man in his image. Now, since God created the world through speech, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, therefore human beings have been endowed, like their creator, with the ability to create through our speech. Our words become reality, and that's not only because of the propagandist, the father of propaganda, Joseph Goebbels. May his name be blotted out and erased, the Nazi propaganda master, who stated that if you state a lie enough times, then it becomes the truth. But on a deeply spiritual level, our words have power. In fact, if you've ever heard of the expression abracadabra, which is attributed, of course, to magicians, it's actually an Aramaic expression, sort of Hebrew, Aramaic expression, which means abracadabra. I create as I speak, or I create through my speech, because Kabbalistically and spiritually, our words have power. Words are not just mere harmless breaths of air. They can build and they can destroy. They can heal and they can harm. And that's why the Talmud tells us that speaking badly about other people is a sin comparable to murder, idolatry, and adultery. It is like the worst sin that we can possibly do. If your mission in this world has been such that you've been endowed with the ability to spread a message, a narrative of positivity, and you abuse that, if you're a journalist and you've abused your ability to share the truth by choosing to share falsehood, by choosing to share incitement instead of journalism, that's when the doctrine of reincarnation comes into play. Reincarnation, it means that we were sent to this world on a mission, and if we failed to fulfill our mission in this world, then we need to return back to this world to finish that mission. Different to the Hindu understanding of reincarnation, which is an endless recycling of souls back to this world. The Jewish belief in reincarnation is that our souls have a specific mission in this world. And if you haven't finished your mission, you got to come back and back again. Sages tell us that you can only do it a maximum of 7 times. And if you don't finish your mission in 7 lifetimes, it's not good. That's for another discussion. But we've got to really make sure that as we stand so close to the arrival of the Messiah, we have to understand that we're on our last leg, we're on our last run of our reincarnated lives. Now's our time to fulfill our mission. Now's our time to think deeply about what was the purpose for which my soul was placed into this world. Think about your gift. Think about your skill. Think about your talent. What are you good at? What gift has God given you, and are you using it for the purpose for which God intended? Because if not, then God forbid, you're an epic disappointment to God Almighty. Yet it's not too late. You can still turn it around. You can still focus on your talents and skills, understanding that they're gifts from God. And if you choose to use them in the right direction, you will be the ultimate source of joy and pride to your Father in heaven, making this world the beautiful place that it was meant to be. You can do it. The world is waiting for you.